The Bring a Trailer Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bring a Trailer Podcast. Alex coming to you from Bring a Trailer headquarters with Zach and Randy. Thanks for being here, gentlemen. It was a little tough this week to get people in, huh?
Sorry, I'm going to be distracted while this 962 is closing.
Oh, man, I started too early. Randy's
I'm
watching
watching
it
it as well. We all got it. I got it on my phone. Zach's got it.
Everybody
right, I can
listening
look at it
knows
too.
the result by now because they're
You
in
guys,
the future.
you guys want to live stream a possible RNN? This is a little risky
I
way
want
to start
Randy
the
to
pod-
pit.
Oh, gosh. No, thank you. No,
Fresh
thank
off
you.
racing school into the
A
962.
little bit not prepared to race this
Okay.
thing. It's pretty wild, though. Some of those early photos of that thing running around.
I think it's a really good looking one. Zach, do you know the background and history on this car a little bit?
No, I didn't read that closely.
It's an unusual livery. And
I
it's
really like the livery. It looks like when I first saw it pop up, I was like, is this a Nissan? It has like a Japanese
it has
style.
Japanese history. That's
Yep.
why it's got an interesting livery and raced at a couple interesting spots. Anyway, yeah, super cool car. We've had
Bernie
a few nines.
Eccleston history.
Is that right?
Bernie.
Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
right?
he owned this
Actually,
car at one
I didn't
point.
know that part. But we've listed a few 962s, I think, on BAT. And when they come up, the experts come out and start talking about them. It's pretty cool to see that dialogue.
Indeed. It's our buddy Bill Noon, who's been telling all kinds of interesting stories. Racing drivers who were too fresh with his girlfriend. You should go back and read some of those. It's good.
I just want the
all of
handlebar
that.
stash of the guy sitting on all the photos.
Well, the bid goes on. We can keep people updated as it goes forward. Main thing I was hoping to talk about today with you gentlemen is some of the adventures we've been on. We were out in the desert, or at least some of us were out in the desert.
Sorry, I was
Zach.
left out of that one.
Oh, but the whole time we were there, we were like, oh, we wish Zach was here.
I wish I was there too. I'm excited to finally get a full download and pepper you guys with questions about it.
This is for the Arizona event. That's what you're talking about.
For auction
The
week, yeah.
Scottsdale event.
Yeah,
That was
right.
super fun. Share some stories from that week.
Yeah, that was really, really fun. And then we're very fresh back from Paris, from Retromobile.
I
where it
still
was-
haven't time zone adjusted. Have you guys?
I don't think I ever adjusted to Paris. So I
Smart.
didn't have that bad of a time coming back.
I was feeling some adjustment, sleepy times as recently as like yesterday. And
Ooh.
we've been back for almost a week. So yeah, anyway, it's takes some doing coming back, flying west, but good to be back in San Francisco. And we all survived the trip as far as I know.
Yep, that's
So
right.
Arizona, I want to hear about the event, but I also want to hear about your experience. So what day did you guys get in and what did that first night look like?
I flew in on 962 was sold. Oh, look at that. Great. Good job.
Sorry.
Bill.
Selling
Sorry.
or sold?
Selling.
Yeah,
Let's see if we
selling.
got another
I mean,
bid.
it's still going. Anyway,
Yeah.
keep-
All right.
keep
That
going.
was a little risky live streaming that one, but that's a win.
I'll talk about R&Ms or actual sales.
That's
we will
right.
talk
Full
about either.
transparency.
It's all worth talking about.
Sales. There were sales in Paris and sales in Arizona. I flew in Thursday morning, Zach, with Beck, which was very nice. We had a nice little business brunch
Just a
with
couple of
mimosas
pilots
at SFO.
flying over to Arizona together.
Totally. We talked aviation. We had some mimosas, which you couldn't do if you were PIC, pilot in command. So that was nice. And then
But some of them did back in the day. I think there's
Absolutely.
some stories.
definitely
of-
ripped some sticks
of
for
that.
sure. But then we were right into it when we got there. We were straight to Joey Cascio's shop, which was really cool. Love that guy. He had really interesting stuff. Gull wing right out in front, gray gull wing with doors open as we
Did
pulled
he
up.
share if he takes his own photos or does he have a photographer?
He's it's like a 2-person show. It's him and his wife. They do it
Cool.
all
I love his
themselves.
photos. And
No way.
Yeah.
Really? He does
Yeah.
all that himself.
I mean, like he has a crew like detailing cars, but like photos, because I was like, let's work together to streamline your process. He's like, no, I do the submissions, the comments, photos. That's all me.
Awesome.
amazing. I just love that no matter what the time of year is, he always times it with sunset. So I imagine the summer he's working till 8 p.m. and through the winter it's 4:30. But he times it wonderfully.
yeah, he like wakes up early at the morning. He's got like a permit to shoot in like a nature preserve. He has like a whole scheme to it. And that's why the results look so great.
I love how these people have crafted their like personal BAT identity.
Yes.
And because I know that dude's listings, every time one pops up, I'm like, oh, it's that guy.
Yep.
But in a good way, not
Yes.
in like this is the same, bad news. It's like the same really beautiful presentation.
He was awesome. So we spent a little bit there. Howard met up with us there. So we chatted with him. And then we kind of all had to go check into hotels after that. And then
Where'd you stay?
Oh, dude, Howard and I stayed we stayed in the RM Ruden block at the Biltmore, Arizona Biltmore, which is the
Nice.
Frank Lloyd Wright, like Mayan brick. It was so sick, Zach. That was like maybe the thing I wish that you were at the most.
We'll have to do the architectural design podcast at some point, but I was hoping you guys stayed there.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool.
That sounds incredible. It's interesting that it's like an auction. Some people call it an auction week, Arizona Car Week.
Yes.
Like, what are you calling it?
I call it Auction Week because I think of Car Week as Monterey,
Yes,
but most
same.
of the people there call it Car Week.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're kind of building on some sort of brand of that. And there were events earlier in the week. I came in, you asked when we were getting in and out. I mean, I came in for like a 24-hour block. I was super fast in and out Friday and then back out Saturday. But there was stuff to do and there were auctions spread out around and a couple new auctions, a couple different ones.
Yep.
But then some of the obviously big players that were there, right? 10 auctions, which are fun to see. And
Went to
we're
Barrett.
going to cover
it, right?
We're going to cover Alex going to Barrett for his first time ever.
Unbelievable.
Unlimited churros
Yeah,
for the entire time.
Yep.
So
I wish everyone listening could see the tattoo you got there.
Totally. And
they have that on site,
I'm
right?
confident there was a tattoo booth
Of
there.
course.
Like,
There
actually,
has
no,
to be.
There definitely was. It was inside and it was a big, like it was one of the main features was tattoos.
They'll tat Barrett Jackson right
I'm
on
sure.
your arm. Will
No
they
doubt
not?
about it. No doubt about
I think
it.
you get that if you buy a car there. That's like included.
I mean,
I think it's a brand just for efficiency.
Branding iron.
They heat it up.
There's so many cars passing the block.
Yeah. I'm going to sound like a fool, but I didn't realize like how it's like literally a circus. Like that's not like no pun intended. It's literally like people are there on vacation to watch a circus and eat turkey legs. I got beers for the crew. It was 4 beers. It was like $70 for 4 beers. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is the event almost more than the cars.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. I'm glad you went to that. I wish I could have been there with you. I think you would.
We
You came out of it and you're like, Randy, I don't know if I'm doing that ever again. I was like, shoot, I wasn't there to like try to shepherd it in a positive direction because it can veer problematic if you like are just kind
Totally.
of cruising in. And anyway, maybe we'll do something
You
like
came
that
out of
again
it, now you're
someday.
pre-diabetic.
He's done. He came out and he's like, okay, I'm never going back. And I was like, come on, dude, you gotta
came,
do it.
saw, conquered, did enough, sat on the metal rodeo benches and watched the whole thing. go
Totally
down.
rode the mechanical bull. Now
What was
we're
the
done.
best thing you saw there? Car or not car?
I mean, everything was like a build, right? Like, so there was there wasn't a ton of stuff that I was super excited.
I was there once and there were 12 Superbirds side by side.
There were a bunch of
that kind of
Superbirds.
stuff is
Yeah.
impressive.
No, it was a little bit, not to jump ahead, but Paris was like this a little bit too. It was overwhelming in some
Yeah,
ways. It's
yeah.
so crowded and there's so much action. It was a little bit like, oh man, I'm having a hard time taking this in.
If you hate everything else, you can usually just go stare at like half a dozen Ford GTs and be pretty stoked.
Yes, they were good. There was like what's the Mercury Comet like drag special? It's not is it a Thunder or something? There was there were interesting like muscle car kind of racing specials. Thunderbolt.
Comet Caliente. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a Ford. Thunderbolt's a Ford, 64 Ford.
Gosh, I wish
But
I could
you're
remember
thinking of a
exactly what
Merc?
it was. It was a
Like
Merc,
an
I
AFX
think.
Merc?
But it was a
Marauder?
big slicks and it had
Yeah,
graphics down
okay.
the side. So
I'll
there are a
take
couple
all
things like
that.
that, but a lot of it was custom. So many Tri-5s with shaved engine bays, like
Mhm.
that kind of program.
Yep.
Which is fine, and I understand why people like those cars, but it's not
Little
exactly.
Gullwing? Do you see a little gray Gullwing
I
there?
did see the BAT Gullwing there. Sure did. Walked right up to that bad boy.
Very eerily similar bid to what it bid on BAT. Did you see
Yes.
that?
Very close. Very
Yeah,
close.
a few friends forwarded that to me. That's the gray Gullwing that we sold directly on BAT as the first premium car in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
It popped up at
It was there.
Barrett by some subsequent owner.
It was.
And
It
you've
was.
driven that car.
I have driven
Both of
that
us
car.
have driven that car.
It had a prominent place in the. One of the things I learned is like people are angling for when you first walk into where all the cars are displayed. Like what number slot you have is like very desirable. So
You're fighting for grid position.
Yeah, the very first one was a Barris Batmobile from like the original Adam West Batman. So that had grid number 1. We were there courtesy of MS Classic Cars, a power seller on BAT. So shout out to Mark and his guy who got us passes and got us in. They had, I think, slot number 11 with a custom 60 Caddy, and they opened up the ropes for us. And so we got to go kind of behind the things and check out the car, which was cool. But yeah, after an hour, I was a little overwhelmed.
You were ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was enough.
To take the golf cart shuttle out like 7 football
Well,
fields to your
dude, we
car.
got
Or
to
to
sit
take one of those
close,
Hummer
luckily,
H2
but-
golf carts out.
Totally. It was like a zoo outside. Remember, we were commenting the whole time we were there, Randy. We noticed how there were like no police in Scottsdale. I'm like, where is the law enforcement?
I was just going to ask. I was like,
Presence.
were there metal detectors? And then I was like, oh, of course not.
They were, well, all the police were at BJ. That's
Solid.
where they were. There was a heavy police presence there.
But also the independent militia was there too.
totally, people in Arizona, they deal with their own crimes.
Yeah, you got your ankle holster?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. Double up. So that was great. The event was awesome, which Randy flew out for. You want to talk a little bit about that? That was in conjunction with OTTO, our local partners.
So yeah, Saturday morning of Car Week, Auction Week, Zona Week, Scottsdale Week, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, our local partner, Otto Car Club, OTTO, we're putting on an event, and we basically co-sponsored and co-presented it. And it was super, super cool to be there. That facility is just sort of, I recommend anybody that can go to one of their events. This is one of their sort of public events. A lot of their events are private, but their facility is incredible. Their cars that they house there, they're sort of a storage and social and all things automotive club there in Scottsdale. Super first class, really well done. And they also have auto works and some things tied to it for a mechanical shop, but also car sales. So that's the way they're a partner on BET, whereby they assist a lot of their clientele to listing cars on BET. You can find their sales on BET pretty easily. They do a good job of those. So we were with them. I don't know how many thousand people, no joke, thousands of people showed up.
Yeah. Wow.
It felt crowd wise, as big as our Monterey event. No question at all. Lots of cars. The trick about this one, and here's what I've been telling people. First of all, it's early morning, which is fun. We've done some AM events, but this is starts at 7. And this means the hardcore folks showed up at 5:30. It's dark. It's cold. It's winter in the desert at 5:30 in the morning.
The band was
cold.
there.
This was the other thing. Yeah. There was a rock band, which I think is awesome. But how the heck do you book a rock band? They're like, hey, can you come play music? And they're like, yeah, when? You're like, yeah, I can be here at 5 a.m. What rock band that is available to get out of bed at that hour?
I've never heard noise ordinance start at an hour.
Totally.
It always ends.
Totally.
Right?
They were wrapping up by noon, right?
Yep.
And they had to go sleep it off and then maybe play somewhere that night. But I was laughing, and it's so cool just because they totally have this wired and really good event planners and execution wise. But my favorite part was the fact that there was a rock band like ripping on electric guitar at no joke, 7:15 in the morning. We're eating bagels and listening to, Steppenwolf or whatever. And I was just like, this is amazing.
Any covers or all original music?
No, a lot of covers. A lot of good covers. A lot of great covers.
But
they played Bob Marley for a while. They had just a cool vibe going, and they played just some great tunes. A great band. I was stoked on it. But just we've never tried to pull that off. No. But to see them just sort of nail that, it made me really happy. But the cars were super cool.
Yes.
Crazy new stuff. Speaking of Gull Wings, another couple Gull Wings showed up there, but some wild 918s and
3
Carrera
GTs,
but then hot rods, but then Dakar builds, but
308, that 308 race car.
Earth Rover, crazy stuff.
That was it a Chevy or Ford? The pickup truck that won best auction last year or the year before with that crazy panoramic roof camper shell on it. That was there.
Yep.
The in and out six-wheeled pickup truck.
A lot of alumni that I recognize, right? Just interesting down the middle Porsches, and that Celica that was next to us was cool. And muscle cars. There's a good amount of American car action going on in Phoenix, but also heavy
GT3
Porsche
RS
stuff.
Yeah,
heavy Porsche
everyone's got
stuff.
a GT3 RS.
What's up with the 6-wheel in and out truck?
Not officially sanctioned, I don't think, but interesting. It was close to us.
People should go look at the gallery. The gallery
our post is up.
Has some very interesting stuff that you kind of won't see anywhere else.
Yep.
And then you guys see any cars either at our event or throughout the week down there that you hadn't been previously enthusiastic about, but seeing in person ignited something in you?
Oh, that's interesting to think about. I mean, the car that got me the most excited was that 32 Ford Roadster, which is now live from Matt Crandall, our other local partner down there, 911R.
We went to his facility
Randy,
together.
We were a little bit should we just drive home with that?
I was there with you, right?
It was the two of us there.
That car. That just went live, and I gasped the same way I did when we saw it live.
My dad already called me about it. And I was like, oh yeah, we saw that before it went live.
Yeah, that's a really nice 32 hot rod build. People know that seller as well. Obviously, he's there in Arizona. He came over and had a little pop-up display at the event as well. So yeah, it was kind of playing the hits,
Yes.
And I love Arizona in the winter, right? People are out. Some people show up to our event in shorts and flip-flops, cruising around.
Totally.
They've been in the sun in Zona 12 months, There
were some great Hawaiian shirts and flip-flop programs. Yeah, it was great.
Totally.
Randy ripped around for 24 hours in a 911 Safari build.
G-body. Or an SC. Safari build, which was super well done, belonging to AdamsPolishes on BAT.
What was the spec? Was it a stock 3-liter mostly?
The motor was mostly stock, but then it had turbo flares on it, so it had a bunch of room for wide Fuchs powder coated white kind of tires. Did it have on it?
Were they all-terrain?
No. It had Blizzak, big giant Blizzaks on it that belonged on an SUV. Like it was, man. And I had never driven her. We list so many Safari builds.
That car was on BAT, wasn't it?
The Keen cars and all this stuff. No, I don't think that car's from BAT. Okay. But 911Rs listed some of them. Yep. Those had a moment and then they kind of chilled out. But I've always been intrigued to actually drive one, and like the drainage ditches in Arizona at all the intersections, because when it rains, like the water has nowhere to go. So the way they pave the roads there and stuff, I was like, you kind of want to have like a Raptor if you're in that town, but this thing was kind of like a sports car, high clearance, like you could go rip it around.
I think about that a lot with the roads out in Oakland.
Totally.
All the potholes. It would be so perfect.
Yeah. So you don't worry about like, driving a super low sports car around or whatever. So anyway, I thought it was fun. I parked in a parking lot to go out to dinner, cruised this long, windy desert road to get to where I was staying, and very cool. I get the appeal of those, and I thought it looked really cool. Like guys taking pictures of it at the gas station and stuff. I didn't go like Baja off road, but I was only there for a little bit. But that it would have been willing. I mean, you'd take the car and hang a ride out a dusty road or something. It seemed like it would have been fun.
How did it do no power steering with all that tire?
I didn't notice it too much. Not oppressive, ripping it around. I thought it was fine. So it was not a 4-wheel drive car, right? It was just a rear drive car. And I was, again, on pavement the whole time. So not getting too squirrely, but it was fun.
Nice. Ringing endorsement. I did want to bring that 32 Ford up with you, Alex, because from the day I met you, you've talked about putting a Hemi in a 32 Ford because of the angle of the V.
And you can see how that's a Chrysler Hemi, which is the widest of the Hemis, how it sticks out of the side.
I know. It's almost flat looking.
Totally. So you can't have hood sides or you have to have bulges on them. The Hemi I would like to put in one is a Red Ram Hemi, which is the smallest of that. So Dodge is the smallest Hemi. That's a Red Ram. DeSoto is the middle size. That's a Fire Dome. Fire Dome. And then Fire Power is the Chrysler, which is the widest.
The biggest.
So the Red Ram is 4 inches narrower. And
is it a different degree on the V?
I don't think so.
Or is it just smaller?
It's smaller in displacement. The smallest one of those is 241 cubic inches. The Red Ram gets really small. And I think they went up to about a 315. Whereas, what's the biggest Fire? They're 392, but they go to, is there a 4?
Doesn't he have a 354 in it? That's what I have in my car.
That's what you have in your Chrysler.
392.
So it's even bigger.
So 4 inches narrower, you would have to have much smaller bulges. Less power, of course, too. But that car also has Schroeder steering box, which is my favorite, which is the sprint car where the steering box is mounted over your feet by the pedals. And then the steering linkage comes right out the side of the cowl. And then there's a rod running forward. That's like I love that program.
Wild. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
It's got some really good details. I don't know who built it or where it came from, but that's a super cool hot rod.
Tribute to the Doan Spencer car. It's got like the Duval windshield and all that stuff. Really nice car.
That's live right now,
that is live
depending on when this podcast goes live.
It'll be closed by the time this is going to go live next Thursday. So it'll be closed by then, but great car.
Congrats on the result in advance.
Yeah, totally. Congrats, Matt.
I'm stoked to see you in it next week.
Yeah, totally. Gosh. Congrats on your win, Alex, in advance.
Totally.
Do you want that or do you want to buy a piece of Toronado?
A Toronado. Give me Toronado.
There was a Toronado in France. Is that your transition?
He means the bar.
I know he means the bar in San Francisco.
That could be a good segue. Oh, man. I wanted to talk about the 44 that's for that same seller, which you and I really liked too.
Is that car going live? Is it in the system?
That's coming up. That's coming up.
Man.
I know that.
Anyway, Arizona, just to put a bow on that.
I love it down there, man. Every time I go, I'm happy.
Because you're a Palm Springs guy.
I'm a desert guy, and I like the big straight roads, and I like the vibe. My blood pressure goes down when I'm out there.
It takes a little while to get across town. My blood pressure goes up when I have to be across town.
Yes.
Because it's like,
Our big joke was that everything is 27 minutes away. And every time we would MapQuest it would be MapQuest, what a vintage dated thing. Every time we would pull up directions on the phone, it's like 22 minutes.
But you'll go broke trying to do that week in an Uber. You have to get your own car because otherwise it's like $60 everywhere you go, right? Because it's all pretty spread out, right? So I was very fortunate to have a car to run around in.
Shout out to Howard's 40,000 mile rental Hyundai Sonata that he was in love with. He talked about the brake feel and the steering feel every time we were in it.
That's so funny because when we were in New York, he had a 60,000 mile Nissan Rogue that he also fell in love with.
He asked for the highest mile rental at the counter. What do you got with the highest miles?
It was so disgusting. Like it had white cloth interior, which is like the most ill-conceived thing for a rental car.
It's not smart.
We had a delightful time cruising around. Howard and I, we ate at Hillstone for every meal. I think he ate there 5 times in a row, 4 times in a row.
Well, thankfully the menu is large enough to support that.
We went there with Randy. That was our final meal in Zona, was
That's
Hillstone. It was fantastic.
Out we go on the Saturday.
Yep. No, I love it down there.
So I didn't go to any big auctions. I basically went for our event, a couple dinners, got to see some awesome Arizona folks, and then our big event, which was crack of dawn until midday and then out of there. But I think it's a fun event to go back to, particularly if you know some folks. Obviously, Ari and at the partners, they tend to have events there. So for people listening, if you're like, why would I go down there? The cars to see at the events are fun. But if the BAT partners are having events during that weekend, I would say go, because both 911R and Otto are both 10 out of 10 to visit, in my opinion, if you get a chance. And we'll be doing more events down there.
Yeah, beautiful facilities.
I'd also
really good people.
Put in a point for the timing. It's cool that an event's happening in late Jan, where I feel like the car space is pretty dead for the most part.
NSX got a free detailing too. I forgot to tell you that bit.
Nice.
Adams wanted to do a detail exhibition at Otto, and I said, great, I have a dirty car down there for you. And then he later, were you there when Adam was like,
back, he's like, that was real dirty.
He's like, that was too dirty. But they cleaned it up really nice. And then Crandall texted me this week and he's like, ooh, that front bumper's pretty rough. We should repaint it. And I said, that's fine.
So, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, spruce it a little before the sale.
It's already been repainted once, so might as well do it again. It's had 20,000 hard miles of being out on the road. Another silver car, Toronado in Paris.
So actually, the one comment I didn't get to make, because I missed out on so many podcasts, is when you and I drove to Vegas together in the NSXs. When we got there, I said, Alex, what's your odometer reading?
Oh, yes.
And do you remember what it was?
I crossed 90 when we were driving there.
You were at like 90 and 1 mile or so, and I was at 90 and 13 miles. Our cars are 12 miles apart.
12 miles apart, Randy, when we drove out there. Isn't that wild? I had no idea you had that many miles on your car.
Yeah, I piled them on.
And he's selling his, and you're never selling yours, right?
Zach's never sells.
Zach's never sell. That's in the never. Zach never sells it, which I love, because you sell a lot of cars, but that one's a keeper.
I drive all my cars in the ground, and then they become worthless.
You have any car you've had longer than that one?
The Prelude, if that counts.
No, it's gone.
Oh, currently?
Yeah.
No, that's
Do you retain ownership of any vehicle, or is the NSX the longest in your stable?
Everything I've had now, I've owned for a little while, I guess, except for the M3.
But hold on, dude. Direct answers. Direct answers only.
I think I got the NSX in 18, and then I got the white GT3 in 20.
Yeah, everything's newer.
21.
That's your veteran car.
He was working that deal in a Radwood parking lot. Isn't that right? Right after I got my car, I think.
How it all happened. Teddy Wong.
That's
UC
amazing.
Berkeley alum. Good guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and you're keeping, in 2045, we're going to have the BAT podcast, and you're still going to have that car, and it's going to be awesome.
I think so. Every once in a while, I'm like, it'd be nice to have a Zanardi.
An upgrade option.
I don't know.
Save it for the 1999 draft. Drafting order matters a lot for 1999.
Oh, it also might get stolen between now and then, because it's already attempted theft once over the last couple of years.
By the way, we're deep. What's our clock on
25.
the BAT? We're 25 minutes in. The 962 is still going.
That's amazing.
The Pinning is still going.
1.245.
It's gone another $100,000, but it's going in like $2,000 increments. So it's another 20 minutes.
322 comments. How is it? Just 2 guys, Randy? You're watching?
I'm not. I just it's kind of here. Oh yeah, same Internet Pros is still going.
And Lambo man,
Bill Noon is over the moon. Is that enough Zona? Are we done with Zona, or is there any lingering?
Unless you want to throw any other Arizona trips.
Not yet. I'll be going back to Arizona. I like Arizona,
back, yeah.
And there's some fun car stuff going on down there.
I'll be back there too. Cool. Let's talk about Paris, which was awesome. The Toronado is probably not the great lead-in, although I did really like that car, and we should talk about it. So, first trip to Europe in 23 years for me. That's
congratulations.
How long it's been.
You made it back.
I did. I did. Barely.
Travel's crazy. Kids are crazy. Yeah. You got to have some fun and tour around outside of the car world.
I
but
did.
Also
took the wife.
Some of these other guys were cruising around Europe and going to other places. I was just Paris. You were just Paris, I believe.
Yep. How many times to Retromobile for you, Randy?
So that was my 3rd time to Retromobile. First time was 6 or so years ago, and then 2 years ago, and then this one. And it had always been a dream of mine to get you guys to be there. Whenever I'm there, I was always like, man, I wish Zach and Alex and Howard were here to check this out. It's so nuts. And to hear about how people talk about BAT over there is really different. And obviously we have our big Euro initiatives. You guys are part of that, which is awesome. But in the earlier 6 years ago there, it was just sensory, like blow your mind. Can't
Yes.
believe this is actually happening. How have I never done this before? How can I get
Totally.
all my buddies to come see this? And so that was very fun to do. But now we're doing more meaningful business over there. And it has taken on a feel of you're walking around and people are like, oh, BAT, like I'm listing a car on BAT. Oh, I bought a car on BAT. Oh, when is BAT going to be in, XYZ random place? So it's a different sort of
Or when
conversation
can I
now.
bid in euros? And we're like, how about yesterday?
How about we just released that before we walked in the door? Well
Yep.
done, Zach. Nice segue. Yeah, we
Perfect
pushed.
timing.
We pushed to offer some new features to European watchers and listeners and readers and sellers and buyers. And so now there were cars live while we were over there that were listed in euros and pounds, and that's sort of a new component of BAT. And we also had a bunch of good inventory that was live when we were there, announcing our third European partner, which is Colombo & Co. out of Belgium.
Who we got to spend a little time with, which was nice also. Zach, what was your takeaway walking in? I almost kind of wish we were incognito because there was so much to take in. I was like, oh man, we've got to do work, but you could spend days there without, just absorbing.
Yeah, I'm still making sense of all the chaos. There's so much going on there at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of it's a little trade showy, but the vintage parts world is super interesting to me. And then there's models and art and posters and auctions.
And OEMs.
And-
The story I keep telling is your Škoda story, where they've got Pilsner Urquell and old cars, but also the new cars, right?
The Škoda tent was the highlight for me, for sure. Whatever that thing was, shoot, I should have pulled up the plaque. I've never heard of it before, with the huge wing, black, low, sleek. Škoda.
Yeah, I saw that car. I don't know what it was called, but we could probably find a photo.
I'll pull it up in a minute. I took some pics, and then they're pouring espresso out the back of some modern truck. There was a Škoda that looks like a Series 2 Land Rover. Did you guys?
that was
catch
weird. We talked about that.
Yeah, it was it was right on the corner there,
Yep.
and it was like a pale pastel color.
It was like yellow. Yeah.
And it was super cool, but you'll never see another one.
Yeah,
No.
not at all. Just a cool piece of history of a mark we don't get here in the US, and like candidly, I don't know a whole lot about. And Škoda results, they're definitely in the double digits, maybe even single on BAT. So that was cool. The Mitsubishi tent was the highlight for me because it's actually easy to pack every single highlight Mitsubishi into like a display because there's, you can count on one hand. But they had the Dakar Rally, Evo, Pajero, which was sweet.
Oh, yeah.
They had, I think it was a Evo 5 or 6 queued up, but most importantly, they had a PS1 with every single Colin McClay rally and Gran Turismo in there.
Was that a McRae
That you
car?
could go play.
Yeah,
So
2
fun.
different stations set
That's
up.
amazing.
So yeah, that was hilarious.
Was the
Cool.
Evo a Colin McRae car? I just walked past it. I didn't look at it.
It was not.
No,
It was not.
It was a Tommy McKinnon car, I think.
Yeah.
Did he?
Mackinnon. Tommy Mackinnon.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Did he ever race in not Subarus, Colin?
Yeah, he raced in Ford Focus
right,
WRC. He did different Ford stuff before that, but he was never a Mitsubishi guy. I
Never
don't
drove
know that he ever
Mitsubishis.
touched the wheel of a Mitsubishi.
They had one of the front wheel drive Citroen rally cars that Carlos Sainz drove so many times.
You called that.
Yeah, I
you
love
trumped
those
me. I
cars.
was like, that's got to be all wheel drive. It was like Xara.
Yeah.
And,
Zora.
and I was
Yes,
like,
that's
that's
right.
got to be all wheel
No,
drive.
that-
You're
that
like,
was
no,
the
that was
whole
front wheel
thing.
drive. You can get into so many like trivia moments
Oh,
when you're
my
over there
God.
because there's so many quirky features that are really deep cuts. Like take the most automotive expert, like you guys are like huge
That
automotive experts.
The Renault like Quonset hut thing that we did some press in that had that like land speed car. I was like,
Yes.
what is this?
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff you see there that you're like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that was another manufacturer booth, which was the Renault
Yes.
booth, which was cool. They had some of their modern R5 and R4 stuff, but then they had like perfectly restored 5,000 euro cars, which is
You love.
I love it.
You were like, I need this for Ray.
Yeah. People are walking off going like, show me the alloy gull wings. And I'm like, show me your Renault 4. And I'm like, it's so good. And I can walk around that stuff and just be so happy about it. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's like going to a Luftgekühlt and seeing a perfect Beetle. I'll be like, I'll be here. You guys
Yeah.
can go to the GT2s. So anyway, it was so cool. We can go like stand by stand if
gosh.
you want to.
The Benz tent had a lot of heat.
Oh, the
Oh, my
C111. That's the car that keeps coming back to my head. C111, I think, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
gull wing supercar.
Sorry,
from
the
70s.
Škoda, it's a 110 Super Sport Ferrat Vampire.
Of course it is. It's a Ferrat vampire.
It has a vampire look to it. It has real small front wheels, and it's kind of a weird car.
Škoda's Czech, right? I was going to say that sounds like a Parisian sort
does.
of novella,
Yeah, they're
right?
Czech,
The
though.
Ferrat, whatever. But I guess it veers in a
Coming up out of the catacombs.
Totally, it's like a Czech direction, not a Parisian Montparnasse direction.
Zach, did you get? I know you and I we braved the crowds on the way back from the Art Curial auction, but did you get a chance to check out any of those kind of halls that were in between the auction and the kind of grand hall?
I did a bit. I walked some of them with you.
Yeah, the under 30K thing, which was something that
Alex and I went deep on the under 30. They have a whole section because, I mean, that whole show and anything classic car can get super elitist pretty quick, right? It can go to $1 million stuff. That one guy's stand, awesome stuff. They had like 5 cars. They're all Mercedes 540 compressor variants.
Pre-war. It was like only pre-war.
Strong.
Yeah, amazing.
It was incredibly strong.
And the like booth like matched the car. It was all black and the cars were all black.
It was like pick which one you love the most. I loved that setup. Anyway, there's so many, but those are what? I don't know, 3, 5, 10 million euro each. So it can veer that direction. But the show intentionally had a moto section and had a whole hall of cars for sale. First of all, everything at the place is for sale, which is kind of fun. Not those manufacturer restored cars, but so many of the displays. And they had a whole section of under 30,000 euros. I wonder if that's crept up. I wonder if that used to be under 15,000 euros.
It started at 3,000 in the 1960s.
Yeah, totally. The euro's in hyperinflation mode. So it's like 30,000. Next year, it'll be under 40,000 is an econo car. But anyway, 30,000 and everything seemed to be 29,750.
A lot of 29,750.
Yeah. But so that was kind of funny. They were kind of eking under the wire. But man, anyway, I don't know why I have this thing where I keep gravitating towards this like low end stuff. But man, there were GTIs in there.
I'm looking at a photo of you right now lifting the hood on that 8-valve blue Mark I GTI.
Yes, I was all there for that. That was actually in the auction. That was the last lot of the auction. Then they fast hammered it with one online bid for 18 grand.
Amazing.
I'll actually say shout out to Art Curial. Whatever they're doing on their auction estimates, they're very sober, honest, realistic estimates. I feel like that's not the norm.
Black Carrera 256 for 375.
Well, auction estimates are a farce. I can go on a whole rant about that, but yeah, theirs are a little less insane than what you see elsewhere.
They're definitely grounded in reality in the way I'm not used to seeing anywhere.
I don't know if this is related to that, but while we were there, one wall of the auction did fall down
onto the motorbike offerings. So that was a little iffy. But I mean, the whole thing's
that's a thing that happened,
executed in a different way, right?
Correct.
I mean, yeah, stuff happens, and man, you guys should talk about the size of the event, given that it was your first time, sort of first impressions.
So, first, I'd want to give an honorable mention to the food. They had an entire section that was filled with probably 200 people minimum, and it was just raw oysters and champagne.
Where's the problem?
No problem at all.
There is no problem.
Shout out to that just wouldn't exist in America.
Randy and I knocked back some ice cold oranginas, which were delicious. So that was my main culinary indulgence there.
Could you imagine getting an oyster at Barrett in Arizona?
Would have skipped it in
it's
either
either
place.
churro and turkey leg, or it's oysters and French champagne.
Yeah,
totally.
So from what I understand, the event sets up on Tuesday. We were there on Wednesday and Thursday. You went back again on Friday, I think, Randy. But
Yep.
Randy very accurately told us you don't, like, the later you go in the week, the more crowded it gets. And we met a couple journalists to talk about BAT and some local partners and some potential local partners. We did most of that on Wednesday. And a lot of those people were out. They were like done after Wednesday. And now I see why. Because when we were there, Zach, you and me on Thursday, we could barely move through the halls.
Getting our steps in.
Totally getting our steps in, but also like jam-packed, like couldn't move, like frozen at some points. The crowds were so thick, and only thicker after that, I think.
Yeah, there was a few points where you feel like you're standing in a line, even though there's nothing to line up for.
But because there's amazing stuff to look at, right?
100%.
I mean, these people aren't just like coming for no reason. Man, I just think it's incredible the lengths that the displays go to make it awesome.
I know,
right? Like
I
there's
can't
nothing.
believe-
It's like did you ever go to car shows as a kid? It's like
I went to the
that.
LA Auto Show
No,
all the
but
time.
it's like that, but like everybody has awesome stuff and is trying really hard. Instead of, you kind of go to those and you're like, oh, they scattered
Correct.
like 4 Isuzus out on this rug. And you're like,
Right.
okay, great. No, here it's like there's a stage and there's lighting
There's like
and they're
ferns,
and they're like
foliage.
enticing you to
Totally.
come with refreshments and
Yep.
all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's no wonder there's wall-to-wall people because I think it's so cool.
One of the things we were talking about
To
is
that point, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I came away, I was like, do I want a Riva? The boat spread was
Did you look at
insane.
the boat?
Yeah, I was not
Gorgeous.
I
expecting
should have
that
snuck
at
you in
all.
there. I got like secret access to the Riva Lounge and the scene behind there. I wish I would have been with you guys when
beautiful.
I was hanging out back there. I was looking at the Riva. You don't have to go
No,
too
you
hard
don't have
to
to sell
convince
already
me
on
on
the
Riva life. But man, that whole
I've always
thing,
been anti-boat until this last weekend.
That's also a big one. That was a big.
That
That
was
like a 40 or 45 foot boat.
super legit Riva from 64, 65. And it was like up on a pedestal. So
Yeah.
you were like looking up at it, like it was levitating. And
Yep.
oh man, what a machine.
To your point, Randy, there's nothing like it in the US. That's one of the things we kept talking about, right? Zach, you said this too. It's not a trade show. It's not a parts show, but it's not for OEMs, but it's not really a classic car show. Some things are for sale, but I mean, it's kind of a mix of a bunch of different things that we have here.
But the interesting part of that, we might as well throw it down
Yeah,
right
right.
now, is their announcement that they
It's
are
trying to tee you up, buddy. Here we
coming to the
go.
US. They announced while we were there, they like making announcements too while their event's going on. They just announced that they're going to do a Retromobile in New York. So people should mark their calendars for that. They're not doing it this year. It's going to be 2026, fall of 2026 in New York. And we were there with the 1600 Veloce folks who are from New York, and they
Yep.
were like, ooh, they
Ready.
were like cracking their knuckles,
Totally,
like
ready to go.
ready to rock. But yeah, we've often debated. Some people were like, hey, do you have a big BAT stand here? We don't typically do that stuff, but coming to the US is interesting. And they're the people that run that show, I have big respect for. They seem to do things right and know how to put together a really cool event. So we'll see what they do. But I think people should certainly go. It certainly stokes car enthusiasm in ways that a lot of other on-site events don't do as well anymore,
Totally.
you know, but that's sort of feeling like I wanted to fly you guys all the way there so that we could see it and experience it. And I think that will hold true in New York as well.
A lot of the people were there. A lot of the people we'd seen in Arizona. Maybe we should call that auction week also. Should that also be
Everything's
car week?
auction week. There's
Totally.
like 8 auction weeks a year.
I mean, plus you get to be in freaking Paris. But I mean, we were staying right next to the Grand Palais, which is where it was Bonham's was the auction there. We went to the RM auction, which was under the Louvre. So, I mean, there's other things happening around as well.
You can make a week out of that one without
Absolutely.
any problem.
Shout
But
out
still, best car of the weekend is the Mercedes vans we're rolling
to,
around.
oh my God, those club seating Mercedes vans.
V-class on your
Yeah.
Uber. You
Yes.
got to go to Uber van. I messed that up once on my Uber call, but
Yep.
then you go to Uber van and you get a Mercedes Vito and you rip around.
Yes.
Remember that one we rode around in with the like starry lighting?
Oh
and
my
headlights?
God.
Yeah. Like being in a gentleman's club.
It was
Totally,
It
it
was
was.
amazing cruising across town. Anyway, we had a lot of fun zipping around town.
It was an absolute delight. It was so delightful to be there with you guys. Shout out to our OG local partner in Europe, Kenan, who was there. We got a little time with Kenan, which was great. Shout out to Mechanicus, who invited us to their facility. They were great.
And Anthony and his Germany local partner expansion as well was hanging with us.
Absolutely. Diane had a great time with her and Anthony. So it was a good hang. Some of our sellers were there. Steve Sirio was at our hotel. So we got a really good, just everyone was there. And also, I mean, for me, the most delightful part was hanging out with you guys. Almost took it for granted, but being in a foreign country with you guys was awesome.
We should do that sort of stuff more. I love
Agreed.
it.
Agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Agreed,
cars.
agreed.
So like while we were there were cars live on the site in France, live on the site in Germany, live on the site Belgium, Netherlands. There's a lot of opportunity over there.
There
And
sure
when
is.
we're there, a lot of people are asking like, how do I get my car on BT? How do I do it? Are you officially here? And we're like, yes, people, like go do it. But sometimes
Are there buyers here? That was a question you got a lot, which was interesting.
particularly from the press, right? The
Yes.
press wanted to hear about that. Like, what's going on? Are all these cars shipping to America? And the cool part of it is it's really interesting how the audience numbers have a bias towards North America, but the sales of cars in Europe, half of them stick around in Europe and half of them come here. And that sort of rose a lot of eyebrows when we'd say that. People were like, oh, really? Like people are selling from Germany to France and from France to Belgium and that sort of stuff. And that's common. And we're building more and more momentum in that way so that people can list everything from, pre-war stuff to modern GT3s in Europe. So that's coming. Keep an eye. I subscribe. I don't know if you guys do. I'm like subscribe or like crazy on BAT, but the listed in Europe category is a lot of fun to get alerts about.
I'm watching it all the time.
Interesting stuff. You're watching that Dino Coupe.
I'm watching that Dino Coupe. I'm watching all the flags. Shout out to our engineering team, the little flags that pop across the top so you can see where the countries are. I love that. That's like my favorite new feature. Watching for that Parisian delivery Olds Toronado. That's what I'm watching
So
for.
we keep teasing that. You got to tell the story. So
that was like my favorite thing that I stumbled across. That was the under 30K zone. I made Zach go look at it. He was like, whatever. But
you made him walk on. That was like all the way to the
it was
corner.
in the corner.
Zach was like, why are we walking?
I needed my steps. So it's fine.
It's like 4x the size of every other car there, but delivered new to Paris. Silver Olds Toronado, French plates. Man,
what year though? That's a 66, right?
I can't remember the year.
They made the 66, 67, I think.
I can't remember which one it was, but really nice. And what an interesting car to drive around Paris in, right?
In 67, like you can have all these crazy European cars, and somebody in Paris is like, I want a new Olds front drive Toronado in silver. And it had these cool decals in the back glass of, was it a club?
Was it an Oldsmobile club or was it Paris Oldsmobile? I can't remember.
Parking or whatever.
Totally.
It had these really period-looking stickers in it. It had probably been repainted, who knows,
but
11
it was nice.
times.
It had
but
low
it was
cams.
all stock, low kilometer, and just what a crazy car
It's also
to be
just
cruising around.
Amazing seeing that thing parked in the 60s in Paris, knowing two CVs could fit in that space.
100%.
Yeah, car not been there.
Right?
But like the styling of it, everything, it just seemed right. It kind of has like a
and silver's an unusual color.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's what I would choose here, but out under the cloudy
It, like, made
skies,
perfect
like
sense
parked
somehow.
in some roundabout over there. I was just like, this would be perfect.
Yes, agreed.
I was really stoked on that. You immediately loved this just emotional remark immediately. You're like, best car of the week for me.
Yes,
You're like, best
correct.
car. This is the best car.
I'm thinking about it the most. still.
Totally. And there's like all these Tour de France Ferraris and short wheelbases. There's a white McLaren F1 there, right? Which Zach shouted out when I first saw him. And Alex is like, yeah, Olds Toronado.
That's the one I'm thinking about the most.
We got to
I've thought
get
about
you
it the
a
most.
Toronado and a vintage cigarette holder.
There were definitely cigs smoked in that car. A. B. Also need a cigarette holder for that for sure. White EB 110 was also very strong.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Dissecting that with you.
Yeah, getting up close to that. Much smaller than I thought in person.
Yep.
That was cool. Yeah,
Everything from supercars there to
so many Bugattis. That
scruffy
scruffy
stuff.
yellow Type 35. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Mhm,
That was in one of the big kind of dealer displays.
Mhm.
CLK GTR. Been thinking about that a lot. That was also
green
scruffy.
906. Did you guys see that?
No, I missed green 906. I love
I
906.
saw the silver 904, which we were debating whether it was real or
Ooh, we're
not.
talking
But
about
there
that.
was a green 906. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's a
Missed
cool
that.
color.
I
Little
know,
Irish
it's nice.
green.
Fantastic. Robert Redford had a green 906. Wonder if that was that one.
906. Did he really?
Yeah.
No. That's kind of cool. I didn't know that.
Had a 6 and a 4 in it at various times. I think had a Furman 4 cam.
Talk to me about CLK GTR 1998 D2 Privat livery.
Oh God!
Talk to me about
So
that
good.
vehicle.
I know.
thought
I
that
walked
might
by
be
with
one
you
of
and I
your
was like,
favorite cars there. Zach.
Was this car 30 feet in the air at some point in its life?
Yes, totally. Has this car ever been upside down at speed?
It
But-
landed on its wheels.
No, it may have been that one. I don't think it was that
No,
one.
I don't
That one
think
had
so
a
either.
different livery and who knows what. But that car has presence. That car has serious presence.
I mean, you said this, Randy, before we went, but so many cars that you wouldn't necessarily stumble across here, right, in the US, which is like when you talk about opportunity, that not that we're going to be, I mean, I would love to list all those cars. Not that we're going to be listing all these multi-million-dollar Ferraris, but cars that significant car. Another one I keep thinking about is the Juan Manuel Fangio C-Type, which is like an actual specific chassis number car that I love that Chris Harris drove many years ago on a video in the Mille Revival in Italy. That car was there. It was on the Fiskin stand, or I think.
Yes, it was.
Everyone calls it the Jensen Button car. I guess he must be the owner of it. But like, I think of it as it was delivered new to Fangio. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I care about. And it's
that
kind of
name
scruffy.
carries a little
and-
more
yeah.
weight in
Well,
my
Jensen Button was
household.
rad, but like Fangio's like, I mean, come on. And it's a brown C-Type, and it's probably my favorite
just
Jaguar.
Fangio is Jensen Button's hero.
Right.
That
right.
puts it in context. for me.
There
Totally.
you go.
Totally. And there it was. Walk around it. It was kind of scruffy, and it's obviously been used a lot. It's like probably my favorite Jaguar, bar none. So seeing stuff like that is mind blowing.
I was talking to some British guys and some sort of Jag real experts way beyond me. I would argue all of us, like really people in that world. And on that same stand, they were raving about the Briggs Cunningham car that was like a between D-type and E-type car.
Kind of homebrew looking thing,
which
right?
I'm not an expert on. Listeners on the pod will be jumping up and down being like, that's this
But
car.
it was American livery, white with blue stripes, right?
I was joking with these British guys at dinner who were great. I was like, yeah, in America, we call that the Briggs Cunningham Jag. And they were like, we don't call it that. And it was really funny. I enjoyed
It looked
that.
a little bit like a Lister, right?
It had some Lister vibes. It had all these external rivets, and they were like, okay, the brown car has all this and these stories and whatever. But the white car is like moment in time, amazing, one of one, won its races, is preserved. It's like the real thing.
Yeah.
These guys were like, bow down. Like, that's the car. Like, that's a
Interesting.
really big deal. And me as just like a passerby, I would have been like, show me the C-type, show me the D-type.
Totally.
But these guys were like, that car is a huge deal.
And it was kind of, now that I think about it, it was center stage. It was like in the middle of the place. You and I were remarking on the rivets, which was
It was
weird.
riveted like an airplane. Yeah, that car, they had some weird custom bodywork that made it a little more Listery, sort of unusual looking. But I was pleased to have seen that car in person.
But that kind of stuff was everywhere. Like that kind of stuff was everywhere there, which is wild.
Yep.
We probably walked past so many significant cars.
Totally. And there were some where people were like, did you see that car? It's like, I never saw it. They're like, that was car of show.
Everyone was
for
talking
me.
about there was a D-type somewhere. I missed it.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So many gull wings, so many Type 35s, like all these cars, baby Bugattis everywhere. Somebody must be cranking out replicas of those. Like every
Freaking Matra tent. Come on.
Totally.
Yep.
Totally.
Some very cool stuff.
Amazing stuff. And what a pleasure to do with you guys. Parting thoughts, Zach?
None.
You'll
do
go
it
back?
again?
No. I need more than that. Will you ever go back to that? Never.
I would go only if you guys are there. Yeah. I don't think I would do it as a
I
solo
love you, man,
trip.
but I would go without you. I
I
would go.
know. Well, I
would
know
go
that about you,
with
and that's
you.
the difference of our personalities.
I would go with
So,
you. I would love to go with you. But if you're like, no, I'm staying home that weekend, I'm like, I'm going. I'll see you there. I'll let you know how it is. I just love it.
I'm glad that we all went. I had a phenomenal time. It was very generous of you to bring us all out. And I think there was like a very clear objective on behalf of BAT. But for me on a personal level, like static display car events.
Done. You're done with it.
It just doesn't get me out of bed in the same way as like, at this point, I want to like do something, drive a thing, see something driving, a little more interactive. So,
I mean, where would
we're going to Spa F1 next time. You in? Are you in?
You love that stuff, Randy. You love Goodwood. Where would you kind of rank this in like dream Euro events that you have gone to or things that you would want to do? I mean, is it top 5? Is it your favorite thing? Would you rather go to Goodwood?
It is top 5, but you should see it certainly once. So Zach's point of view is probably common for some people. There's like a social dynamic at this one where it's like you're there for 3 days and you pick 3 different sets of folks. You got some little,
Moto.
Some little, you have Yoshimura.
We've got
action in the background.
Totally.
that's my Moto Compa being worked on right now.
You got some displacement in that thing, man. We'll see if that simmers down.
We've got all the folks coming to the office and they're like, it might be too loud. I'm like, for you to pod while we're there. And I'm like, you should hear the motorcycle shop when we're podding. This is like the 4th unofficial like chair of the podcast is the motorcycle shop.
Totally. Okay. Now it's subsided mostly. Shout out to the shop next door. We like Sam. But anyway, it's a very cool show. It is static. That's super different than going to a Goodwood or going to a Spa 6 hours or going to drive yourself through the Alps or do like, there's so many European things to do that are awesome. But this one, in terms of quality of cars that are all in one place, I struggle to think other than maybe Goodwood Revival of like, where else are all the cars going to show up? And you're like, dang, go there and just see that. Yeah. But it's the middle of winter, right? You get outside, it's freezing or it's raining or it's whatever else, right?
Yeah.
It's
Paris in February is also
I actually think we got lucky with the weather there.
The first day, the day that you missed was like unbelievable. Like we were landing and I was like, we're low in the runway.
Oh, the
it was
fog
fall
right on the
all
tarmac.
I know,
way
I was
down
watching
to
the front. The Air France flight gives you the front cam, and it's just all a wall of cloud until you feel the plane touch.
Yep.
Yeah. So we weren't there for the weather, but I just think that's a very cool event that everybody should go to. But where does it rank? I don't know. I mean, if you want seat time, it ranks at 0, right?
Sure.
Or if you want mountaintop views or beach vibes or whatever, it ranks at 0. But is it interesting? Is the crowd interesting? Are the cars interesting? Is what they're trying to do interesting from just I don't know. I like taking the temperature of like what kind of cars people are into and what the general public's into versus real deep car people.
What does it say about the state of the hobby, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just think that the people that run it are cool and the event is cool and the rivalry between some of the booths is kind of interesting to watch from the sidelines. And the auction, if you go to these Arizona auctions, you kind of get a feel for what US is like, or you go to Monterey or wherever. This one's different. You looked at the cars there and some of them are kind of scruffy and different, right? It's just a different approach.
Yeah.
And I think that texture and that difference makes it worth doing. And I'm not going to do it every year, but I'd go back again. But I also love that you say no more static. We need BAT track days. And I'm in.
Listen,
I like going with you and Alex because I feed off your enthusiasm, and that's the fun part of me. But yeah, just straight solo car events, I'm looking for a little more interaction.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair enough. How about you?
Yeah. I loved it. Like I said up top, I got to take my wife, which was fun too. So I got to do a little bit of Parisian sightseeing, get to go to the Military Museum, Les Invalides, went to Sainte-Chapelle, which is my favorite cathedral there. And we went to did some excellent dining. So that kind of heightened the experience for me. I actually was like I thought this is what you were going to say, Zach, but I was maybe the most interested in taking the temperature of where BAT stands and how people are thinking about it. For me, it was very informative about the state of things in Europe and how BAT can serve it and what our challenges might be and what our opportunities are. And so that, I know, Randy, was part of the main reason you wanted us all to go. And that almost came naturally. And I think it is because the event is so multifaceted, because all the people are there, both the crowds. So you get to see kind of what Europeans are excited about, just your average European car fan, but also all the players are there selling cars. We ran into, like I said, a bunch of people we'd seen in Arizona, but then this wide mix of cars. And I don't know, it really did feel like in 2 days, I was able to absorb a lot of lessons about the state of collector cars in Europe.
Yeah.
So I found that very valuable. I like static car events, like you said, Zach. I get excited easily. So it was easy for me to get enthusiastic about Oldsmobile Toronados. So you can take me almost anywhere around cars, especially around you guys, and I get excited. So I had just an absolute ball. It was fun hanging with Anthony. I liked all the parts of it.
We had a lot of good interactions, a lot of cool folks. But no, I'm taking this to heart. I love your guys' feedback and thinking about where we need to be. When I'm over there, oftentimes with Anthony from 1600 Veloce, we'd look out at a room like that and we're like, wouldn't it be fascinating if these people just, instead of coming to these huge shows, because we don't have these shows, right? It's a different vibe here in America. There's a German one, there's a Belgian one, there's a Netherlands one, there's several in the UK, there's this big French one that we were at. There's one in Bologna in Italy that I went to a year ago. You're like, it'd be wild if you just turned all this inventory in 10 days on BAT.
100%.
Like all of it could be gone in 10 days, like this whole room of cars. And then like you need it all over again. And the mentality there of willingness to like sit on inventory.
I know.
So we were laughing about it a little bit, just chuckling about it and being like, I wonder how many of these cars will still be in inventory in a year. And there's some good percentage of them that will, right? And it's kind of like the sort of time value of money and the dealer mentality, and even those 30,000 and under guys put a 29 grand. Like, what's it really worth? Is it worth 19? Is it worth 21? And we're like, you and I would chuckle and be like, oh, it's like a car corral, right? With for sale signs. And you're like, okay, that's a keeper price.
Yeah.
Okay, right?
Like kind of a rough notchback Mustang that's 29,000 euros.
Totally. And you're just like, you know what? That's a keeper. That car, we're going to see you in another year and they'll give you another spot in the corral again. And you can try again next year. So it's just fascinating to think of the mentality in America where it's like, you can get a good price and you can sell a car rapidly instead of the, let's have 20 dinners together before we sell the car to you to make sure the handoff. It's kind of wild to look at. And I think that cultural difference, you can't just barge into that and be like, we're going to sell all these cars in 7 days, obviously. But the potential for what a model like BAT can do over there, what it has done in North America and what it can do over there for some of those cars to unlock a efficient handoff of the cars.
100%.
It seems so inefficient to trailer all these cars in and then sit on them and mark them for sale and then ship them home again and then negotiate for 5 weeks. It's old timey in a way, which is charming. It's not good business, but it's charming, right? So it's kind of fun to watch.
I can appreciate that Retromobile alumni is the antithesis of BAT alumni. Keep showing up every year with the same car because it still isn't sold.
Totally.
I mean, yeah, the thing that I kept thinking about when I was there, and as I've been recounting the show to our colleagues here, is like, it's a lot of opportunity for BAT there. It's needed. I don't know if everyone realizes yet, but we're needed over there.
Yeah.
We can do some good.
Yeah. So hopefully, I mean, just giving people an alternative, not forcing it, but just like, if people want it, here it is. Here's a different way, right? So anyway, we'll see how that goes in the next year. Maybe we go back to Retromobile and see what has changed in the next year.
We'll bring a car. We'll get a car that Zach can drive around.
Yeah, I can just drive one of those vans around Paris.
We'll get you the one with the wraith roof.
And he'll have some motion. Dude, what other, you saw the Toronado? I was trying to think if I saw any street park cars or anything. It's winter.
Actually what I saw that was the highlight of it wasn't street parked, it was water parked. It was an AMPA car parked on a boat.
Yes. And this is actually, wait. You saw it you saw it in Amsterdam.
No, I saw this in Paris.
Oh, really?
On one of those like river barges.
My morning jog.
Wow.
I gotta pull this up.
I love that you're out jogging. It's like 30 degrees out. It's actually jogging.
It was 30 degrees out.
This is like way more boring than Zach's Infocar sighting. But I saw on my last day, right before I left, on the final day, I saw a GTD, which is the GTI diesel.
Yes, they have those.
And
there.
I've always liked those. I've read about them. I'd never seen one. It was in kind of that Nardo, like, oh, look at that, Randy. DB5.
Yeah, I was on the street crossing a crosswalk or jaywalking or doing whatever, and a silver DB5 comes around the corner and almost clipped me. And I was like, that's rad.
Well done.
Amazing.
Well done, sir. Yeah, there wasn't a ton of, I remember last time I was there, again, over 20 years ago, like a lot of the like kind of French city cars, just like the common cars were exciting. It's a little bit more humdrum around the streets of Paris.
Did you see one of these parked?
Oh, I did see one of those.
Oh, I saw a bunch of those.
You know what else I saw when I was walking?
Those are Citroens.
Oh, I was walking to La Saint-Valide and I should have taken a picture. I didn't know the little Honda electric city.
Yes. Those are like over there.
Yeah.
What are those called again?
They're like a retro CVCC kind of, but they're electric. They're cool looking. That's the first one. That's the first one I've seen. They're just available to the public, I guess. But man, I saw one of those and I was like, that's awesome.
I sat in a Giulietta TI that belonged to the Prez of the French Alpha Club.
Look at that. Good color on that.
That was pretty choice. I showed him my picture. We were instant friends.
That looks like it belongs in the Michael Mann Ferrari movie, like driving.
There you go. Speaking of cars to smoke in, that was one of them.
Totally.
Anyway, terrific deal. Really glad we got to recap it. I really valued traveling with you guys and hanging out with you guys. It was really, really fun. So I wish we had Howard here to get his point of view. He always has some funny things to say about Europe. He's had so many different trips to Europe over his life, but that was, it was kind of the four of us running around. It was great. Last one here for you, Zach. Did you see this car? 993 Cup Black.
Sorry, I said another.
Oh, that was at Art Curial.
No. It was beautiful.
Wow.
The one at Art Curial wasn't a cup, and it was pretty scruffy.
Yeah,
that one was a Carrera RS with graphics on the side and was cool.
Yeah.
So that has the normal cup wheels, but this has the center lock.
They're center
lock, and the I think they made some. Yeah, those are center lock, no lug.
They're the 2-piece
Speedline.
Yeah,
and man, I love 993 cups, and this one was all just black. Oh,
strong.
Forget it.
Very good.
Anyway, I can keep going through my phone photos here of all sorts of noise, but it was great. Great to be there with you guys.
What a pleasure. The big takeaway for me was being there with you guys. It always makes it more fun.
Same. We didn't have enough beers crushed at the end of the day.
I know.
I had a few. Where were you guys?
That's what I'm saying.
We've kind of scattered a little bit. We did about one big dinner with everybody, but then I was running around like a coot.
You always have all kinds of stuff to do.
I was
Same thing in
running around
Arizona.
like a crazy person, trying to find some way into the tour auto. That was what I was doing, running all over town, finding some way to grease the application process to get me into the tour auto.
Germany next, I guess.
Great. I'm in.
What is it in Germany?
Steins
of beer.
Brew? Are we going
Hopefully.
to Oktoberfest?
Maybe we should.
Okay. Then there's really good car stuff to do. I can come up with Munich activities.
Please do.
Very easily. And it could be in motion, Zach. It doesn't have to be static.
Great. Please. I would love that.
Perfect place to close it out. I'm going to hold you gentlemen to that. Thanks, guys, for doing this. And thanks to everybody for listening. We appreciate your feedback. As always, you can send that to podcast@bringatrailer.com. We will catch you next time.